When you're making a film, there are two things. You're very, what's the word, monomaniac, really. You've got to get the shot. If it says in the script that there's a fight on a cable car, you've got to do it. I mean, you've got to get it. It's almost like war, really. You do it, even though you're terrified that something ghastly is going to happen. I mean, you do everything you can to prevent an accident, but obviously there are accidents happen in film because by the very nature of what you're trying to do.
We were actually up on the cable car, and we were right at the top, at the highest point. And we moved, the cable car was moved back about 30 meters, so there was a complete sheer drop.
Oh, I think somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 feet up. And the point was that neither Martin nor I could use safety harnesses and wires and cables because we had to go round and round fighting in and out of the girders on top of the cable car, and quite obviously we would have been tangled up. There was in fact one moment when I had to tip over the side, and the idea was that Lewis would shout cut. I would then attach myself with the wire and fall over the side, and I was desperately waiting for the word cut, this magic word, and it didn't. And we reached that point in the fight where Martin knocked me over the side, and I had no alternative but to go, grab the handrail at the edge of the cable car, and hang on for real. I think Lewis had quite forgotten that, in fact, I wasn't attached by anything other than just pure terror.
That takes in an incredible amount of courage. And, of course, Lewis, when he heard about it, he thought it was unbelievable.
And even my mother, you know, to this day, she absolutely is convinced that it's me, and she thinks I'm so brave. Little does she know that I suffered from vertigo. I don't even like being this tall. I did enjoy the one scene where I bit into the cable car. I wondered how they were going to do that, and it was just fantastic. They had a confectionery company make braided licorice. They made all these little licorice things, and then they braided the strands, and then they took those strands that were braided, and they braided those together, and they had this wonderful cable. It looked like a real steel cable. And so I was able to bite it in half. I had to do it about 30 times, and so I happen to like licorice. It tastes a lot better than the steel teeth.
Of course, we never imagined that we were going to find somebody of 7'4" who would wear the steel teeth, but he was enormous, absolutely enormous guy. But not much strength, strangely enough, like all very huge people, like giants. He didn't really have the strength that you see in the film.
So my first reaction was, gee, that's kind of silly, and but then I started thinking about how I could make this character interesting and fun. And I thought, well, that kind of a character could be sort of a comic strip, unbelievable, and it seemed to work real well. The teeth were so uncomfortable that they caused a very stoic look because, you know, you're trying to keep from gagging. And I was like,
You know when you get a little piece of silver paper on a piece of chocolate in the cinema, and how it drives you mad. Can you imagine a whole mouthful of that? Poor man.
And they probably put his tongue near the back of his throat, which made him feel sick all the time. So he would only put them in at the very last second and take them out as soon as the shot was over.
I collect big game fish for various marine institutions. Magnificent creatures.
Charming.
The notorious golden grotto sharks, the most savage, the most dangerous. They know when it's time for them to be fed.
When we were doing the shark sequence in Largo's Pool in Nassau, what we had there, they would catch us these sharks, and I mean, we're not talking about tiddlers. These were big sharks, around about 7 to 8 feet long. And we had about 40 to 50 of these things swimming around this pool.
And we were told that these sharks are not man-eaters, you know, they're okay. But as we were trying to keep them alive by pushing them around the pole with great sticks, just keep them moving, because you had to keep the sharks moving to keep them alive, to oxygenate the water. And one just turned around. Now these poles are about as thick as my wrist. And the shark just turned around and bit the pole in half. So I thought, well, if they're not man-eaters, they're not going to do you much good if they give you a kiss. Yeah.
Then the next problem was how to get Sean in together with the sharks. And I had decided to build like a corridor out of plexiglass, out of perspex, 4x8 sheets, and have the shark go up and down behind the perspex corridor and Sean on this side of it. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the whole length of swimming pool covered by plexiglass sheets because they couldn't supply me in time. So there was a gap, a 4-foot gap.
Well, Sean said, not bloody likely. And I said, look, Sean, it's perfectly safe. You're behind a plate glass. You're in a little tank of your own. And I said, the only way the sharks can get in is if they can jump in the air like a dolphin. He said, well, how do I know sharks can't? I said, you have my word for it. He says, not good enough. Third time we did it, something went wrong with the chute. And 2 sharks got into the tunnel. And believe me, the shot we have in the picture, Sean Connery is not acting. He looks as the shark goes by and does a very cool, wary look, and suddenly goes, Jesus, because there's another shark coming by.
And I was in the wrong side with the shark. And I got out of the water without, I think I was dry when I touched the side.
And I'm trying to attract the attention of the what's the name, the camera operator, who's filming like crazy. And he suddenly sees what's going on, and he takes the camera, and he goes bump like this, and hits the first shark on the nose, hits the second shark, and goes on filming.
I don't know whose fault it was, but it didn't happen again.
Stuntmen live their lives to the full. You know, they're great on location. Go around with the stuntman, you get into trouble.
When I sit here, I probably look very calm, but I believe there's a switch, and I know I've got that switch, and I can actually turn it on now. I mean, originally when I first started, probably it was a little bit wild, and it had to be controlled, and that's normal. Young people always tend to have this aggression, and that was channeled over the early years of my career. But certainly when I got into a good situation or a big stunt situation, the adrenaline does flow. And I mean, now I can't believe the things that I've done in the past. I think, did I really do that? Did I really hang from a helicopter 300 feet up over Beckton? You know, was I on that cable car? I always feel it must be another person.
I think probably the most hair-raising thing that Martin did was doubling for me on the side of the train in Octopussy. And he had a foul accident because the stretch of railway line they were using, they'd already used up, and the train was going, and it was an area that he'd not rehearsed over.
Climbing on the top, running along the top, climbing down the side, going underneath, coming from underneath the train. And all that I had done without any problem. I mean, it was like child's play to me, actually. I mean, it was like second nature. I was enjoying it.
There was a concrete stanch, and we were already in India shooting when the accident happened. But he was hit, the train doing about 35, 40 miles an hour, and he was hit by the concrete on his side. But he's so strong that he just kept holding on because he knew it was too fast to fall off.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be looking forward. I had to be looking through the window. And I just got hit, and I was very lucky that I didn't get wiped out completely. The extraordinary thing is that they told me that when I got hit, my body just flipped up in the air, and I was just hanging on by one hand. Now, if I was to say a stuntman did that in reality, I would say there's no way he could hang on, but somehow magically, I was still there when I'd gone past the bridge. Well, I had 3 months in traction in hospital, and then I had about 3 months on crutches, you know, and that was like a terrible situation, because from being an extremely fit and active person, all of a sudden I was immobile, you know. And it's worse for somebody who's so active to all of a sudden come to a dead stop.
He was many, many months recuperating. But he was back again, you know, it's amazing. He can run as he did before. He'll suffer when he gets to my age, though.